Welcome to this week's End of Days Update, coming to you from the National Religious Broadcasting Place. Wow, all of these places getting the gospel out all over the world. What a busy few days. We've done interviews to get the message out for our new book, The Countdown, interviews for End Times Made Easy. Such great guys doing the interviews. We had Alan Didio, had Joseph Z, had Brother Rick Renner, I think he's behind us there, had a couple others we're doing this afternoon. So what a cool thing to have. Every one of these booths are full of people getting the message out that Jesus is alive and he's coming again. But you know what? If you're anywhere, this is going to be fun this weekend. If you're anywhere near Champaign, Illinois, we'll be at Midwest Believers Church this coming Sunday through Wednesday. It's one of Joey Roberts' Generation Summits. We're going to have an absolute blast. Those are the funnest meetings to ever go to. Then after that, we're going to Granger, Indiana. We'll have a great meeting there. That will be Thursday on through Sunday. We'll have a wonderful time there. Another Generation Summit. Man, come from all over. It's hard to even explain how cool those are, but we'll have a blast. So we're coming to you every week to look at the different things that point to the coming of the Lord, specifically the gathering of nations for the Ezekiel 38 war. And you know, something happens every single week that kind of freaks me out, specifically about the last 2 months. But what's happening right now is such a push to get nations ready for the Antichrist to come on the scene. So why would we get into this? Okay, the tribe of Issachar, God had a whole tribe in the Old Covenant that had an understanding of the times to know what the children of Israel ought to do, indicating if you don't know what time it is, you won't know what you should do. So we're looking at these things that are blatant, that are concise, that are real. What's real? Israel regathered, Jerusalem won back, Ethiopian Jews brought back, Hebrew language restored. You have all these predatory birds start showing up in the land of Israel. We usually get into that in the very end, but right now we've got stuff happening around Israel that literally is being a doorway. I call it kind of the reverse of John the Baptist. It's making a doorway and an entrance for the Antichrist to come on the scene. Specifically, what's being said about Gaza. I mean, you have all these weird things with the hostages. You have Hamas not keeping their word like they're supposed to, so Israel's having to go back and forth. Israel's having to let basically terrorists go free in conjunction with that. But you've got so much terrorist activity in the West Bank that Israel moved tanks there. First time they put tanks in the West Bank in 20 years. Well, you even had rockets fired from Gaza this last week. So much is happening. I think the intriguing thing was last week, what we talked about was Russia and the Ukraine coming to the forefront without a solution. So Trump makes a solution, and that brought Macron on the scene to gather all the NATO nations there in Paris. But what you've got happening this week is you have the UN is planning a meeting in June to literally come up with a two-state solution, and they called it a 7-year contract. Now that should open some eyes up real big, because the rapture of the church doesn't make the tribulation start. It's when Israel signs a covenant with the Antichrist, that's when the tribulation starts. So you have all these things happening with Turkey, all these things happening with the NATO countries, and all these things happening literally with Russia and the Ukraine, pointing to it making a guy come on the scene and go, okay, I got a perfect solution for Israel, I got a perfect solution for the NATO countries. It will all be about what's going to be the most financially beneficial things for all of those. Well, when you see that stuff coming to pass, you know Jesus is just about to come. There's a large gathering of Israelis coming back into the northern part of Israel again, getting back into their homes. Along with that, you've got Israel setting up more stations on the Golan, all because Turkey's trying to set up 2 basically army bases in Syria. Which, isn't that wild that you had Egyptian troops come on the edge of the border, Turkish troops wanting to set up 2 bases in Syria, along with Hezbollah and Hamas still doing what they've been doing. The whole contention over everything is how hard or how strong is Israel going to be about guarding those 2 nations. So it's a hard subject to come up with, even to the point that Trump said, freaked them all out, saying, look, America will rule that area. But there's so many natural things happening with floods. They're concerned about earthquakes happening, and they're real concerned about the volcanic eruptions that are getting ready to happen, because the seismologists got this all played out right in front of them. Remember, in a couple of weeks, you've got a blood red moon. You have things happening in the heavens, things happening in the earth, and things happening with Israel. Watch and see this next week what happens with the UN. You'll see this pressure put on Israel to fold and go, okay, we're going to give land away. And man, that pressure that's like that is not God. So how cool that we get to see it play out right in front of our eyes. What is it? It's the Bible coming to pass right in front of our eyes. So we always do this at the end. What do? We look at all the scriptures that show us how close we are. Because things come and go, but the word never changes. Number one, Israel regathered. Number two, Jerusalem won back. Jesus said the generation that sees those two events won't pass away till all's fulfilled. And then after that, you got the Hebrew language restored. You got the Ethiopian Jews brought back. You got the fertility of the land of Israel. You got the revival of the Roman Empire. And you got the Pope that literally is on the point of death. You have Bishop Malachi that had a vision of all the popes that would be on the earth all the way up to the coming of the Lord. He got the coat of arms correct, 114 out of 114. The History Channel said that's statistically impossible. Only a God can do that. But you got the ritual baths around the temple fill up with water. You got foxes show up on the Temple Mount. You have the fish show up in the Dead Sea. You had the Dead Sea turn blood red where Sodom and Gomorrah was on the Day of Atonement. You have 172 different species of predatory birds. We talked about that, showing up in the land. So you got the cleanup crew in Israel right now. Absolutely amazing. You got the cleanup crew there right now, and they got to have something to eat. So then after that, you go even further. You got sign after sign after sign after sign. Men will be lovers of themselves. We have selfie sticks. I like what came out last week about the Temple Mount. They were looking at making sure Israelis could get up on the Temple Mount during Ramadan, and even that part of the city of David right there below the hill, that came into picture again. So sign. It's hard to get into about 80 of them in our book, but they're there. But then after that, you go from signs to signals. You had blood red moons on Passover and Tabernacles, 4 in a row. When's the last time you had blood red moons 4 in a row on Passover and Tabernacles? Well, 1967 when Jerusalem won back. 1948 when Israel was made a nation. 1492 at the Edict of Expulsion when the Jews were kicked out of Spain. So remarkable things happening in the heavens, coinciding with amazing things happening with Israel. And then after that, you have the Bethlehem star. What do you have? Jupiter, Regulus, Venus came together at the birth of Jesus. What was the constellation? Virgo. This last year, we had a celestial event. Jupiter, Regulus, and Venus coming together. What was the constellation? Leo. He's the Lion of the tribe of Judah. So this is it. You have all of these things in the natural coming together. Crazy weather. You had snow in Israel. I mean, you have volcanic eruptions that are on the edge of happening, earthquakes on the edge of happening, blood red moons, and then the world looking at Israel. What can we do to make it settle down there where Gaza is, where Hamas is, where the West Bank is, where all these nations are coming together, specifically the ones mentioned in Ezekiel 38. So wow, how blessed are we? What do? Help our local church, help our local pastor. We get engaged. When you see the finish line, you run faster. I've never seen a person in a race go, I don't know what that is. They know exactly what it is. It's the finish line. So wow, we're watching the end of the race come right to us with all the signs. That means we hook it up and we hustle and do the will of God. Remember, the Lord's not mad at you. He's not frustrated with you. He loves you. He wants you to have all this information so you'll lift up your heads. Your redemption draws nigh. Come back to us next week. We'll look at what's happening with the UN. I'm specifically amazed at what we're going to see with the UN, so it'll be exciting to see what happens. Have a blessed, wonderful week. We'll come back. We won't be at the religious broadcasting place. We'll be back in our normal location in Tulsa there. So have a blessed week. We'll see you next Wednesday.
Thanks for joining us today at the End of Days Update. If you'd like to be notified every time there's a new post, just go to the edu at josephmorris.com and subscribe to receive email alerts. If these posts and updates have been a blessing to you, please consider making a one-time donation to help get the message out, or even becoming a monthly partner with Joseph Morris Ministries. Thanks again for tuning in to the EDU, and we'll see you next week.